Mr. Germain, welcome to... but the Prime Minister isn't taking visitors.
I'm not a visitor, and in a few more weeks he won't be Prime Minister.
Oh, my.
What is it, Germain?
General Cornwallis's army was trapped at Yorktown, sir, and surrendered.
Surrendered? Then it's all over.
There isn't a chance of the government lasting in office another month, Lord North.
Have you told His Majesty?
Oh, I thought that the Prime Minister ought to.
Oh, yes. News like this is always a job for the Prime Minister. The war is over. You know that. We'll get nothing from Parliament now, not even funds to bring the army home. Curse those American rebels. If they had only been willing to compromise.
Why should they compromise when they could win?
But who thought it? Who believed they could win? I'll have Cornwallis's hide for this, and Clinton's too.
You'd better tell His Majesty.
That will be a pretty scene, you may be sure. Why, Germain, why did I ever wish to be Prime Minister?
I think it was for honor and public service, Lord North.
Ah, yes. And how has the public been served? England has lost a war to a ragtag army of beggars in the woods of America.
Well, there's still honor.
Oh, I'm sure they'll make a statue of me and put it in the park. I'm off to see the king. I'm not sure whether the news will kill him or make him kill me.
Isn't there something more we can do? Can't Clinton invade from New York?
You don't understand, sir. It isn't a military end to the war. It's just more than Parliament will bear. We shall be swept from office. You may look to see Shelburne and Rockingham in government now, and Burke, and Conway, and...
Not Fox!
And Fox.
I'll abdicate. I'll leave England. Well, there's nothing for me here but danger and destruction if I remain. Burke! Shelburne! Fox!
I'm sorry we lost the war, Your Majesty. We did our best.
Best? God help England if that is England's best.
Your Majesty, I beg you not to think of abdication. We will make peace with the rebels, but soon enough they'll prove themselves incompetent. The war united them, but soon enough the colonies will start quarreling and going to war, and after a while you'll see they'll petition you to take them back as crown colonies, and their mad experiment will lead to an increase in your power.
Do you think it might be possible?
Your Majesty, I have no doubt of it.
Lord North, those were your very words 5 years ago when you assured me that the war would be over by 1777. Oh, leave me alone, North. Let me be miserable without having to have you here to remind me of how badly everything has gone. Miserable Americans. I hope their miserable country falls into the sea.
Let them shout of liberty all they like. I can see nothing ahead but ruin, unless we make some changes.
Oh, John, be joyful. We have our victory over the English. Let us celebrate without reminding us that tomorrow we have to pay the piper.
What, Ben? Are you getting old? Are you beginning to think that any old government will do?
Well, I am getting old. I'm in my 70s. But I'd like to think I still have my wits, Mr. Adams.
This government is impossible. Congress is responsible for paying for a war. We're $60 million in debt. But Congress has no authority to tax. Now explain to me, please, how Congress is supposed to pay the debt without any money?
I seem to have done all right so far. Just print some more if you need it.
You can joke all you like. But that system only works when people know that there will be taxes enough to make the money good. Continental dollars are almost worthless. And every time we pass an impost plan to raise taxes from imports and exports, Rhode Island or some other silly little colony vetoes it. America would be better without Rhode Island. A state full of pirates, that's all they are.
And America would be better off without South Carolina and all their slaves. And without New York, the stubbornest, stupidest collection of Dutchmen outside of Holland itself. And what about Massachusetts? We don't need Massachusetts, that nest of radicals and Yankee traitors.
I know. Either we're one nation or we're no nation at all. But Ben, we can't survive with the Articles of Confederation. They give far too much power to the states. We need a strong central government.
And in time, John, the states will realize
In
it.
time. The debts are due now. $60 million. If we don't pay it, the entire economy will collapse. And if we do pay it in paper money, people will lose all confidence in the Congress, and then...
Time, John, time. The creditors will wait. Because if they push too hard, the government will fall, and then they'll never get paid. It takes a while for people to realize that the states can't manage alone. They'll see the need. The debts merely give us a time limit, a few years. Then there'll be a move for change. Historical forces are what control our destiny, John. If you study history, you'll see that compromise is inevitable. Colonel Hamilton? Alexander Hamilton! Do you know Hamilton? One of Washington's most trusted men?
I know him. He's the man who thinks Washington should be king.
That's silly, John. Colonel Hamilton, what brings you to Philadelphia?
Desperation, gentlemen. I come straight from General Washington.
Practically everyone does these days.
Gentlemen, Congress must find a way to pay the Army. There are rumors going around the camps that, well, Congress intends to discharge the soldiers without pay.
Well, they want to go home, and we have no money. It seems only logical to discharge them without pay.
They have been gone from their homes for years, many of them. They weren't rich to begin with, and now they're suffering. Their families are suffering. It's terrible. And you'll send them home penniless, without shoes, without clothes, without even the horse they brought to war with them that was killed at Camden or at Monmouth Courthouse.
Save your speeches until you're elected to Congress yourself, Hamilton.
Are congressmen the only ones allowed to make useless speeches that nobody listens to?
Well, how dangerous is the situation, Colonel?
There are letters circulating in the camps, demanding that the soldiers throw out General Washington and follow some hot-headed officer who will lead them in a march against Congress.
Ah, and do you think they'll do it, these soldiers?
March on Congress? They'd do it in a minute.
No. Throw out General Washington. Do you think they'll get rid of the man?
No, indeed. That's not possible. They'd die for him.
And is there any chance that General Washington will lead them in an attack on Philadelphia?
How can you think of it? General Washington is no traitor.
Then we are safe, sir. So talk to Congress all you like. Frighten them as much as you can. The fact remains that they don't have the authority to raise the taxes to pay the army. Then go back to the army and make sure you tell them that if Congress had the power to raise taxes, they would have their money and the national debt would be repaid. But as it now stands, if they want to know why they haven't been paid, they should go home and ask their state assemblies why they keep revoking every tax that Congress asks for. Yeah, tell them that. And then let us send home 10,000 soldiers to every state in the Union, and let every soldier tell his neighbors that Congress meant well. But without power, Congress could do nothing.
In other words, Franklin, you intend to use these soldiers as political tools.
Well, of course. The desires of the people are political tools. That's what government is. To balance all the desires of the people and make us together a nation that can stand.
You old fraud. You're still plotting and planning, aren't you? After all these years.
I have never plotted, Mr. Hamilton. I have merely observed the workings of nations and peoples. I tell you that until conditions are bad enough, frightening enough, the states will not give Congress enough power to govern. The army could destroy this republic right now, of course. That is the danger of armies. But this army has at its head George Washington. Do you know him, Hamilton?
I'm with him every day. I know him better than any other man.
I doubt it. George Washington could be king. He could be king, and the people of America would love him for it. But he never will be.
You think not?
Because old George believes in freedom. All through this war, he had an army. And if he wanted to, he could have marched to Philadelphia, taken over the government, and compelled the states to pay their taxes, and the people would have loved him for it. He could have made himself a dictator. But he never did. He never disobeyed Congress, even when Congress forced him to work with stupid generals and without adequate supplies. I tell you, Hamilton, America is free, and will always be free. Not so much because of what George Washington did, as because of what George never did, and never will do. He never used his personal power to undermine the power of Congress. I don't know many men who would have done the same. What about you, Hamilton? If you had the devotion of 10,000 soldiers, would you refuse to use it to give yourself power over the whole nation?
That's a cruel question to ask.
It's a cruel truth to face. George Washington has the power of Julius Caesar, but he has turned it away. And as long as he lives, no other man can do it. So speak to Congress all you like, Hamilton. Frighten them, terrify them, then go back to Washington. He's what will keep us safe.
And I thought he had no friends in Congress.
Well, he has no political friends, Hamilton. But then, nobody has political friends these days.
Nevertheless, I will do what I can. Good day to you, sir.
And to you, Colonel Hamilton.
Well, Ben, so much for your idea about historical forces. Suddenly, it isn't history. It's one man standing between America and ruin.
Well, it was just an idea. I didn't say I believed it. Besides, mixed in with all the historical forces, we can't deny that God has the power to allow a great man or two to be born. Look around you, John. Look around and see what God has done in this nation. Tom Jefferson, George Wythe, Nathaniel Greene, Sam Adams, John Dickinson, the Rutledges, the Lees. Look in the mirror, John. Not since the Lord himself and his 12 apostles were together has there been such an assemblage of great and good men on this earth.
Do you include yourself in that?
Oh, sometimes when I'm feeling quite pleased with myself, I do. But then I commit some loathsome error and remember that God sometimes has to mold with inferior clay. Come now, John. Can't you celebrate our victory? Can't you celebrate our peace?
No, Ben. Not until I'm sure that it will last.
Oh, you sour-faced Puritan. I think that even the babies in Boston are forbidden to smile. You give me indigestion.
Sorry, Ben.
Oh, that's all right. I usually have indigestion these days. Just don't go near that crowd. They're liable to spot your frown and think you're a Tory, and tar and feather you and run you out of town. Well, good day to you, lad.
General Orson is trying to speak. I don't care what he says. I'm not going home till I get paid. If I have to put a bayonet to Congress myself.
What did you fight for, man? Not for money, I think. You could have made more money staying home and sleeping every day. Now, I think you fought, as I did, for the dream of a nation where no one rules because his father ruled, where no one can make you pay taxes unless you've voted to give them that power. A nation where no one can ride in and take away what you own by force because they have more guns and bayonets than you. Isn't that what you fought for?
Yes, that's right.
Now, I have been with you all these years, men. When you were hungry, I was hungry. When you were cold, I was cold. When you were treated badly, I was treated badly. I endured criticism and attacks. I endured public ridicule and long separation from my home, family, friends, and I have never regretted it. Indeed, out of all the years of my life, it is my years with you that make me proud.
That's right, General. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But if you, the Army of Liberty, ever turned your weapons against the freely elected government of this nation, if you ever tried to take power because you have the guns and bayonets, then on that day, I will regret every moment of my service with you. If you became the enemies of liberty, all for the sake of money, throwing away the future for some pittance now, then I would know that I had wasted all those years, that it had been for nothing, and I would wish that I had never known you.
We'll never do it, General. We're with you, General. We'll never let you down.
I know you'll never do it, men. You are men of honor, and so are the men of Congress. They know what you've been through, and if they could do more for you, I know they would. But they haven't the power. Let me read you a letter from a friend in Congress. Excuse me while I get my spectacles. I can't see without them. You see that not only have I grown gray-headed in your service, but now I'm growing blind.
What was I thinking of? What do they owe me anyway? Just a few dollars.
Tell your men, he writes, tell your men that we too have been away from our families for all these years, that my house and farm were burned by Tarleton and his men, that my fortune is spent, and that I would give 10 times as much, if I could, if only we could properly reward the brave men who have given so much. But do not let them despair. The promise of future payment is not lightly given. We are honorable men who pay our debts, and when we tell them that they will be paid, they may be sure that payment will come. And yet they may be sure of this. No amount of money can fully repay them for what they have given to our children and grandchildren for generations to come. Freedom and a new nation. Your soldiers have paid much, and in 1,000 graves lie the bodies of those who have paid all. Not just America, but all the world is in their debt and will be forever. That is what my friend wrote. I say the same words to you. God bless you, men.
God bless you, General Washington. General. 3 cheers for General Washington.
Is this the best that we can do for our soldiers?
Don't get righteous with me, James Wilson. You know I don't like it.
I don't like it either, but it seems the only way.
It's a lie, Madison.
How is it a lie? We freely admit we can't pay them, but instead of discharging them, we place them on indefinite furlough, so that technically they are still in the Army. We also give them promissory notes, which they can keep and redeem later, or sell now for whatever they can get from private merchants. It's something. It's the best that Congress can do in our present feeble condition.
Where did all our authority go?
Hey, it went away with the British Army, Wilson. As long as the British were a threat, the states were willing to swallow their local pride and let Congress rule. A little. But now, with no danger.
No danger? What about chaos, civil war, anarchy, dictatorship?
Oh, well, those hardly sound frightening to the men in the state assemblies. That's how they conduct their daily affairs.
I don't like it.
Wilson, if every man of good sense sat back on his chair and said, "I don't like it," then the only people making laws would be the ones who have no ideals at all. Politics is compromise. Does it take an old oak near 80 years of age to tell you young saplings how to bend? Do it. Vote for it. Let our soldiers go home. And then work for the next few years to make sure that Congress is never so powerless again.
Oh, all right, Mr. Franklin.
Remember it, all of you children. Government isn't the business of making everybody do the right thing. It's the business of getting everybody to do the best you can get them to do.
Goodbye, General Washington. God bless you, General Washington. See you in Virginia, General.
Goodbye, men. There they go. Heroes, all of them. Penniless, cheated by those who owed them most, and I did nothing to help them.
There was nothing you could do, except to keep them from revolt.
I suppose you're right. Well, Colonel Hamilton, what will you do now?
We'll go back to New York and practice law, I imagine.
Yes. Your career is still ahead of you.
And yours isn't, General Washington?
I'm in my 50s now, Alex. I'm feeling old. I want to go home to Mount Vernon and run my plantation. I came when America needed me and did my best. Well, now it's done.
And what if America needs you again?
America needs the young men now. You and young Tom Jefferson and Madison. Now, he's a good one. And James Wilson, and you know the list.
Oh, I know the list all right. But all these bright young men with their ideas and ambitions, we have no stability. We need you.
For what?
Why, to be our king.
Have you lost your mind?
No, I've never been more sane. Just because we don't have the English king to rule us doesn't mean we don't need something like a king for ourselves. Someone who will never have to stand for election, so that he can be wise without fear of being turned out of office by the ignorant people. Not a dictator, but a counselor to the nation, stopping Congress from its worst foolishness, giving us a symbol for our greatness and a foundation for our future.
Enough, more than enough. Alex, you know you have no better friend than I. But the day you suggest such a thing to me again, that is the last day you will ever see me. And if someday someone were named King of America, don't bother looking for me upon that throne. I'll be back out in the field, leading an army to throw him down and make us free again. No monarchs, no princes, no nobility who have the power by right of birth and never have to answer to the public for their rights.
I see that you feel strongly about this.
For me to permit a king in America, it would be to spit on the grave of every man who died to make us free.
I see. I'll never mention it again to you.
See that you don't. Go back to New York. You're a lawyer now, and I'm a farmer, and we'll have no nonsense about me becoming anything else. God bless you, Alex. You've been a son to me.
And you. You've been my only father.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. I know you, George Washington. And you won't stay in retirement for long.
How are your crops, boys? Are your crops good? But then why are we paying so much in taxes to the government in Boston? I mean, what do we get for our taxes? Do we have good roads here? Do our taxes pay for schools? Do we have good judges? Now, if you ask them Boston lawyers where our taxes go, they tell us our taxes pay off the state's debt. Well, it's our obligation as citizens to pay our debts. But who is the state's debt owed to? Why, to all them Boston lawyers. That's right. Liars, you mean? Hang them all! Are we going to let all those rich men tax us so the government can pay them? No. I figure those debts aren't debts at all. They're the fair taxes the rich men paid, and by heaven, we poor men aren't going to pay taxes in their place. So I say, let's kick out the tax collectors, kick out the judges, and govern ourselves. If we pay taxes, it'll be to make life here in Western Massachusetts better, not to make Boston richer than it is. Are you with me? We're an army now, boys, and we'll sweep them all away before us. It's a new day from now on.
There they are. These rebels are going to tax her. Hundreds of them.
Ready, men? Aim! Fire! That's it, that's it. They're on the run, boys. That's enough. The rebellion is over.
All those dead and wounded. An ugly, ugly business. Thank God it's over.
Over? Just because Shays' rebellion was put down doesn't mean it's over. Why, the public debt is still with us, and there are smaller, weaker states that may not be strong enough to put down a rebellion.
Ugh, I know it. The only way for America to survive is for America to have a strong central government that can rush troops to put down rebellions like that, that can collect imposts and duties and use the income to pay off the public debt. We need a strong central government, and you know it. We've put this off as long as we can.
Well then, Mr. Madison, let's stop putting it off. Instead of pretending that this ridiculous conference on tariffs and imposts is going to do any good, let's call a convention to write a new constitution.
The state assemblies will love that. We can say it's a convention to propose revisions in the Articles of Confederation. Now, everyone agrees the Articles need to be revised. Everyone knows Congress needs to be stronger.
And then at the convention,
we can create a national government strong enough to do some good. One that can raise taxes without being subject to a veto from the states. And settle disputes between the states.
Nothing less than a constitutional convention, gentlemen, to replace this weak conference with a true, full national government. Not just a legislature, but also judicial and executive branches of the government.
With careful limits on the power of the central government, so the states will be willing to ratify it. Well, we can't leave it up to the state assemblies. I think it must be ratified by state conventions, elected directly by the people, so that when the Constitution takes effect, it will represent the will of the whole nation. What are we doing? Honestly, what sort of madness is this? How in the world can we ever hope to write a constitution that will be approved by all the states? New York and Virginia will be troublesome because they'll want the central government weak. The wee states will be troublesome because they'll want the central government to control the public lands. South Carolina and Georgia will be obnoxious about slavery. And Rhode Island, heaven help us, Rhode Island will never agree to anything.
You think it's hopeless, huh, Wilson?
I do.
So do I.
For that matter, so do I. Let's do it anyway.
Why not? It's worth a try.
Heaven knows things can't go on as they are.
Where?
Philadelphia, of course. Next May. The first week of May, 1787, in Philadelphia. Let's propose it, get it passed, and then see if it comes to anything.
What should we call it?
Call it what it is. A constitutional convention. To turn this mob of states into a nation.
Oh, Mr. Ambassador, you can't be too tired to dance. Everyone will think I stepped on your toes, and so you refuse to dance with me.
Madam, you did step on my toes.
John Adams, it's very rude of you to let them know. Now dance with me and I'll forgive you.
Oh, no. I'm too old to dance all night. I never did it when I was young. It was never allowed in Boston, as I remember.
Oh, yes. You still have Puritans in America, don't you?
Not really. We just have people who want other people to be Puritans. No one wishes to live that way himself. Look, there's the American ambassador to France, Mr. Jefferson. He'll be a much better dancer than I am. Go dance with him.
I already did. A charming man, and so intelligent.
So intelligent? Do I hear myself being discussed?
No, Tom. We were trying to decide what you will be like when you grow up. He might be quite tall, too. What do you think?
Oh, definitely.
Why, you're panting, old man. Has London society worn you out?
Quite. But I'll tell you the truth, Tom. I'd rather be here or in Paris than back in America right now.
Ah.
Oh, are you about to discuss serious matters of state?
The thought occurred to us.
You Americans are so boring. You keep acting as though matters of state actually mattered.
It is foolish of us, isn't it?
Perhaps it's just because our nation is so young.
If only you Americans hadn't become rebels. Then you'd both be Englishmen, and nowhere near so tedious.
I think we offended her.
Englishmen don't like to be reminded how young America is.
I know. That's why I do it as often as I can.
Has anyone been writing you about the Constitutional Convention?
Everyone.
You realize that if we're not ambassadors, we should certainly be delegates to the convention.
Every morning I give thanks to God. I forgive the Lord for not making me tall, because he granted me the blessing of not being in the Constitutional Convention.
Well, do you think they'll come up with anything?
I hope so. If Washington is there, they won't fall apart. If Franklin is there, there might be someone to talk some sense into them.
Yes, but I worry about your not being there.
Me?
You were so vital to us when we were trying to pass the Declaration of Independence. No matter how much we disagreed, there was one thing we could all agree on. How much we all detested you.
I was tedious, wasn't I?
I may have written the thing, John, but you made it happen. It was your vision.
Oh, well, in a few more years, no one will remember. It's the work of the Constitutional Convention that will last, that will shape America for centuries to come. All joking aside, Tom, I wish I were there.
No, John, you're well rid of it. Though I will admit I wish I were there to make sure they included a Bill of Rights in it. Something to make sure tyranny isn't possible in America. To guarantee protection to individuals whose ideas may not be popular. Like you, John. Your ideas are almost never popular.
Freedom to meet together whenever you like, without having to have the government's permission.
Forbid Congress to pass bills of attainder. People should only be arrested for crimes, not just because Congress has taken a dislike to them.
Abolishing slavery.
Oh, yes. But we are dreaming, aren't we?
We fought for freedom, didn't we? Well, then how can we endure living in a nation that allows black men and women to be bought and sold? And their children?
I know, John, I know. But if we abolish slavery, South Carolina and Georgia will never ratify.
Well, then good riddance. Keep them out of the Union.
Perhaps that's why you and I aren't at the convention. You would never bend on the issue of slavery, and I would never bend on the issue of proportional representation. It's absurd for Delaware and Rhode Island and Connecticut and New Jersey, New Hampshire, Georgia and Maryland, those miserable little pipsqueak states, to have equal votes with Virginia and Pennsylvania and New York and Massachusetts. The vote of a man in Delaware would be worth 10 times the vote of a man in New York. But you can bet the small states won't ratify a constitution that doesn't give them an equal vote.
So the hand of Providence has got us here in Europe so that more reasonable men can work out a compromise.
It's an attractive thought if you believe in Providence.
I suppose the creation of a strong, united America is more important than justice and freedom.
And certainly it's more important than we are.
Tom.
Yes, John.
It occurs to me that once America is firmly established, you and I might not always be on the same side of every political issue.
That occurs to me, too.
And knowing myself and how I get when I'm fighting for an issue, I shall no doubt say some unpleasant things about you. I shall no doubt become quite angry and say rude, unforgivable things.
Yes, and I would answer them.
Quite rudely.
I expect so.
But, Mr. Jefferson, kindly remember this. No matter what I say, and no matter how I oppose you, and no matter how I might detest you, I truly believe liberty has no truer friend than you. And in these months in Europe, I have come to trust you. If you are governing America, then America is safe.
Oh, I'll never govern, John. I'm not an ambitious man.
Still, I have said it, and it is true.
Then let me tell you this. I'm not a man who makes friends easily. But I have come to trust you, John. And as long as you are alive, I will know that freedom is alive.
Thank you.
Enough! Enough, enough! Let's dance! Where was that snippish but beautiful lady who was wasting herself dancing with you? Oh, there she is.
Oh.
No, stay. Rest, John. Leave London society to me. It's so nice to be around people who speak English for a change, instead of all those Frenchmen.
General Washington.
I've resigned my commission, Governor Randolph. I'm just Mr. Washington now.
But that's my point. You're never going to be just Mr. Washington. If you are for something, half of America is for it. But if you stay home, we might as well all stay home, too. This convention will amount to nothing then.
I'll go.
I know you have years of service, but good heavens, man, America needs you.
Edmund, please. He said he'd do it.
Oh, did you?
As long as I don't have to make speeches or hold any office. I'll attend, I'll vote, I'll try to persuade a few people. I just don't want to be responsible for things. I've had enough of that.
But you...
Of course, General Washington. Exactly as you wish.
Yes, I suppose so, Madison. I had hoped you would serve as president of the convention.
But never! If I thought you meant to do that to me, I wouldn't go.
All right, then. It's settled. Now, we need to prepare.
Prepare, Mr. Madison?
Of course. A delegation that arrives at a plan, a proposal, will be deciding the terms of the whole discussion. It will give us a direction to go.
In short, Virginia will control the shape of the convention?
I can't think of a delegation better qualified to do so.
Tom Jefferson wrote to me. All he cares about is that it be democratic, and that it guarantee the rights of man.
Good heavens. We'll be lucky if it happens at all. Mr. Jefferson is far too fussy. Well, let us set to work, gentlemen. In the first place, I think we must provide for executive, legislative, and judicial functions.
A Supreme Court. Mr. Mason and I have discussed this at length, and we feel that the court must be appointed, not elected, or they'll never be free to decide
Gentlemen, there being delegations present from 7 of the 13 states, we have a quorum to begin. This convention is now in session. The first order of business to... Mr. Madison?
Mr. Chairman, I wish to place before you the name of George Washington to preside over this convention. His loyalty to the United States is beyond question, and his wisdom and fairness have become legendary.
I second it.
I move that we elect General Washington by acclamation.
Yes, second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I gladly surrender this gavel to General Washington.
I'll get even with you for this, James Madison. You too, Edmund Randolph. You planned this from the beginning.
You'll do a wonderful job, Mr. President.
Now, I can't fall asleep during long speeches. This is most unfair. Gentlemen, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. You have chosen the wrong man for the job. When you find me inadequate, kindly remember that you have no one but yourselves to blame. Gentlemen, I think it is necessary for us to have a secretary, someone to keep the affairs of this convention in order.
I nominate William Jackson.
That is done. We will now function under the rules as drawn up by the Rules Committee. Our thanks to George Wythe, Alexander Hamilton, and Charles Pinckney for devising such splendid rules that, with God's blessing, we shall conclude our business without anyone being killed.
Mr. President.
Mr. James Wilson of Pennsylvania.
Mr. President, there is no one here more committed to democratic ideals than I am. I have no fear of the common man, for I believe his common sense is the surest protection of justice and liberty that our nation could possibly have. But each of us will have to vote on 100, nay 1,000 different questions before we quit this convention. If every word we utter, every compromise we make is published, so that the people back in our home states can read it, we may as well not begin, for we shall accomplish nothing.
Well, I'm not afraid to let my people see what I've said and done.
Nor am I, Mr. Rutledge. But what if I change my mind? What if today I say I will never agree to any constitution that invests the executive power in a single man? But then, what if someone, say Mr. Hamilton, proposes a way of limiting the power of such a president, so that I decide it is not intolerable? Must I then be bound by words I spoke hastily? And what if I must bend on one point in order to carry into effect something else? Must I have the newspapers of Pennsylvania vilifying me because I did not choose as they would have chosen? Gentlemen, this Constitution must be the product of our wisdom, not our fear, our thinking, not our ambition. I move that the doors to this meeting be closed, and no spectators permitted herein. And I move that all members of this convention be forbidden to make public any statements or proposals made here, until such time as this convention's work is concluded.
I second that.
I do not like a government that acts in secrecy. But we are not a government. We are rather trying to create a government. And without secrecy, we cannot do our work. I move the question.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye, aye, aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Gentlemen, let us bar the doors. Now, shall we get to work?
Mr. President,
Governor Randolph of Virginia.
Mr. President, fellow delegates, the delegation from Virginia has drawn up 15 resolutions, which we should like to propose and lay open for debate. Be it resolved that the Articles of Confederation be corrected and enlarged by the following measures. First, that the legislative power of the United
I don't know about you, Mr. Dickinson, but I think that Virginia has stolen the march on us.
It seems so, doesn't it?
Their plan is not without merit.
Almost, but not quite.
I find the plan for federal control of western lands is quite attractive.
Heaven knows it's the only way my people in Delaware will have a chance to get a part of that vast stretch of real estate.
But what New Jersey, at least, cannot endure is a plan to have Congress apportioned by population.
Why not? I thought you were in love with democracy, Patterson.
I also love the state of New Jersey. I do not wish to see it disappear. I would rather keep the Articles of Confederation, difficult as they are, than to see New Jersey reduced to saying yes, sir, to whatever Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, or Massachusetts decides we should do.
Well, it's hard to think of anything else on which we would agree, Patterson, but we do agree on that.
They will accuse us of being against democracy.
Fine with me. I am against democracy. At least the uncontrolled mob rule that some people seem to want.
One state, one vote. Are we agreed on that?
Completely.
Good. I'll compromise anywhere else, but not on that.
I think we've done well in this committee, gentlemen. I am satisfied that with these limits placed on him, a single president will do well as head of the executive. That should please Mr. Dickinson, who wants a king.
I am not pleased, Mr. Wilson.
Well, at least we've tried, John.
In fact, I think we have achieved almost a perfect balance here. A series of triangles. The President, the Congress, and the Supreme Court will balance each other well so that no one of them can become tyrannical. The President can veto obnoxious bills from Congress, but if 2/3 of Congress can agree, the veto can be overruled.
Since when has 2/3 of Congress ever agreed on anything?
The President will have the power to appoint members of the court, but the Senate must approve them. The court will interpret the laws, and the President will carry them out. But the Congress will have the power to impeach any of them if they get out of hand. The President will have no authority to dismiss Congress. But neither house of Congress can go home if the other house doesn't agree. And so on, and so on.
Actually, it does sound as though no one will be able to do anything.
It does, doesn't it?
But then, that means the government will not be able to make up trivial laws or constantly make trouble for the people. It will only be able to act when there is such pressing need that all these branches of government agree. That is a strength of this government, that it will be inefficient. Inefficient in taking away the rights of the people. Inefficient in taxing them to death.
It doesn't matter. None of this matters a bit. As long as you intend to apportion the seats in Congress by population, New Jersey will never ratify.
Neither will Delaware.
Or, I'm quite sure, Connecticut, or Rhode Island, or New Hampshire.
How dare you sit there, Patterson, and declare that you want this country torn apart by civil war, rather than part with your bloody equal representation.
Mr. Madison,
And you, so calm. Do you see what they're doing? These little states will always be able to hold most of the people of this country hostage by their petty little concerns. 4 states have 2/3 of the people of this country. By what right do you presume to tell those 2/3 of the people that they must get the permission of New Jersey before they can do anything?
Will you calm down, Mr. Madison?
I will not calm down until Mr. Patterson tells me he truly believes such an arrangement will be just and fair.
Mr. Madison, I do not think it is fair. I do not think it is just. But there are other considerations.
Tell us, Mr. Patterson, what considerations are more important than fairness and justice?
Mr. Madison, to you, New Jersey is just a little state that's standing in your way. But to us, it's home. It's who we are. New Jersey has its own history. New Jersey bled as much as Virginia did, I dare say more, in securing the liberty of our nation. We don't want to be swallowed up. We want always to have a New Jersey.
And a Delaware.
I can't tell you a reason for it, Mr. Madison. Perhaps it is as foolish as you think it is. Perhaps you're right to despise New Jersey. Perhaps New Jersey will become nothing, will become meaningless unless it retains an equal voice in Congress. And I will never vote to make New Jersey nothing.
I do not despise New Jersey. I love Virginia too much not to honor you for your devotion to your own state. But I think you have nothing to fear from the larger states. When have New York and Virginia and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts ever agreed on anything? It will never be large states against small states.
But, Mr. Madison, it is large against small right now.
So you want South Carolina's vote in favor of your Constitution, Mr. Wilson?
Of course I do.
I'll give you my vote on the matter of representation, provided...
Provided what, Mr. Rutledge?
Provided that we reach some accommodation on the matter of our peculiar institution.
You mean slavery?
You Pennsylvanians always put such an ugly color on that word. We like to think of these people as our servants.
Servants, sir, are not bought and sold.
Now, we won't get anywhere by arguing, Mr. Wilson. I went through this with Tom Jefferson when he wrote his Declaration. And I'll go through it again with you. Our way of life in the South depends on the continued harmony of master and servant.
Then the South is, you will forgive me, sir, barbaric.
You gold-plated hypocrite, Mr. Wilson. Would you like a colored man to live next door to you? Now, if a colored man asked to marry your daughter, would you be glad?
Don't be absurd, Mr. Rutledge.
You can be all righteous about how the black man is equal in the eyes of God. But I notice you haven't elected any colored men in Congress from your state.
I do not pretend I have any deep devotion to men of color, Mr. Rutledge. I only say that I think it is wrong to keep any man, black or white, in slavery with no hope of freedom.
Keep that out of the Constitution, or there'll be no Constitution. And mark you, South Carolina will go to war rather than give it up.
I believe it, Mr. Rutledge.
But we're not unreasonable. Now, we will compromise. And for instance, we are willing to let you abolish the slave trade. Gradually, of course. In about, say, 20 years.
Long enough for you to stock up, is that it?
You're not trying to be reasonable, James.
Go on.
Now, as to the matter of how slaves should be counted, there are quite a few who think we ought to count slaves in our total population when it comes to deciding how many congressmen we get.
What? So suddenly slaves are men when it comes time to vote?
But we'll bend on that. When it comes to taxes, we already agreed to count every 5 coloreds as being worth 3 men. So let's do the same when it comes to voting.
Let me think about it, Mr. Rutledge.
You do that, Mr. Wilson.
The hypocrisy The blind hypocrisy of buying them and selling them, and then insisting we count them as human beings when it's time to put men in Congress.
James Wilson, what other choice do you have? Do you think the other states will go along with you in going to war over it? Compromise, James.
How can America stand for freedom when we allow slavery within our borders?
It is a contradiction.
It will come to a war someday. Bloody, terrible war.
Then let it come.
Is that what Benjamin Franklin truly advises? Civil war?
That's for our children to decide. But if you don't compromise now, they won't have a nation at all. Spain or France or England again, someone will take away our freedom if we don't get this Constitution to bind us together. We can only do what is within our power today. Abolishing slavery is not within our power. So be content. The rest of the Constitution is good. Believe in that.
Mr. Franklin of Pennsylvania.
Gentlemen, I haven't made many speeches in this convention because I'm getting to be an old man. And I'm always afraid of accidentally giving a speech that I've already given before. But this time I must speak. You know that I stand for democracy. I have from the time I was a boy, and nearly got myself jailed for printing the truth in Boston. You know that I have long stood for having Congress apportioned by population and elected by the people. But after long weeks of work, our committee has come up with a compromise, a great compromise that will allow us to form ourselves as a nation. One house of Congress will represent the people. The House of Representatives, with one representative elected by every 40,000 citizens. And the Senate will represent the states, with 2 senators from each state. Money bills, tax bills, all must originate in the lower house, the one closest to the people. Treaties and alliances and the approval of government officials will be up to the Senate, who will speak for the states. Some of you will be foolish enough to notice that this plan doesn't give you everything you wanted. And you'll rant about it a while, I suppose. But no matter how you may dislike some features of it, kindly remember this. Either it will happen this way, or it will not happen at all. Either give this much and get something, or refuse this compromise and watch America collapse. Gentlemen, I will vote for this compromise, even with the loathsome and detestable institution of slavery still included in it. I will vote for this document.
What is it, Mr. Wilson?
I just wanted to see how it looks in print.
Oh, it's a pretty paper, but I wonder if it'll ever be law.
Why is that, sir?
Well, it's so reasonable. Who ever heard of people voting for something reasonable?
The sovereign state of Georgia hereby ratifies the Constitution of the United States by a unanimous vote. The Commonwealth Commonwealth of Massachusetts has ratified the Constitution by a vote of...
Impossible. You didn't have the votes.
Not yesterday we didn't, but today we did.
It'll never last. This Constitution will never last.
You should read this letter from Tom Jefferson in England. He's quite angry that our Constitution didn't have a Bill of Rights. I told him he'll just have to write one and get it added on. But you didn't come to hear me read from Tom's letters.
General Washington, I came to inform you that the Electoral College has chosen you to be President of the United States, the first president under the new Constitution.
Why do they persist in troubling me, Madison? My work is finished. I'm a farmer, not a politician.
I think that's why they trust you, sir.
Does this mean I'll have to live in Philadelphia?
I suppose so, sir.
Sometimes I wonder if winning the war was a good idea after all.